Hello, you beautiful legends, and welcome to another episode of Ben and Joel Reviews. I'm Ben.
And I'm Joel.
And this is the podcast where we discuss movies, TV shows, and theatre.
And whatever else we want.
So please, sit back, relax, and let's dive in. How are you, darling?
I'm quite well, darling.
Good.
I'm quite well.
Good.
How are you?
I'm alright. I'm feeling pretty good. I've had a nice bit of time off. Been quite relaxed. Had a nice few lay-ins because I desperately needed some good sleep.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's not been too bad.
Very good.
So for this episode, we wanted to, I guess, appreciate another piece of work.
Yeah, we wanted to kind of do a bit of a case study, I suppose.
So it's got, kind of a case study / review of a movie that came out in 1980.
Yes. One I had not seen.
Friday the 13th.
Ooh.
Which was the first of many Friday the 13th movies. 12, I believe, to be exact.
That is a lot.
Yeah. They need to make one more, though.
To make it 13.
To make it 13.
It a nice round number.
Yes. I'm telling you, I've got an idea for one. It needs to be made.
Hollywood, be ready.
Yeah, I think because we've talked about it before, and we were kind of trying to think of what else to talk about on the pod.
Yeah. It felt like a natural fit.
Yeah, I was like, let's watch Friday the 13th and review it and see how it's aged.
Yes.
Over the years.
Now, you haven't seen it in a long time, correct?
It's been a very long time since I last saw it.
Does it hold up to your last viewing?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. I obviously went into this blind. I mean, Friday the 13th is one of those franchises that is constantly talked about. You know, if you're talking about horror movies, it's hard not to mention.
Just very quickly, we should have said this at the start. If you haven't seen it, spoilers. We are going to be going into some major spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, switch this off. If you want to go in blind, switch it off, go watch the film, and then come back.
Yeah, I think you'll get more out of it going in blind.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely enjoyed it, but knowing how it gets talked about, because it's an older film, you know, it's been out for how many years now? 40 plus?
Yeah, it's like, 40, nearly 44 years.
Yeah, so there is an element of kind of knowing what to expect. I didn't find it particularly scary.
No.
Apart from one moment that we'll get to. And I think, although it sort of sets the groundwork for although I think other films did set the groundwork for the kind of typical slasher movie, I do think it felt a bit mid. It's not a bad film by any stretch, but I also don't think it was particularly unique or...
It's a lot to say this because it's the first film of the franchise, but it is very run-of-the-mill.
Yeah. That is exactly the phrase I'd describe it as. It is run-of-the-mill. Yeah. And if that's what you're looking for, if you want to sit down and watch a horror film that is very run-of-the-mill, you want to watch something real, like a real sort of stereotypical slasher movie, then this is absolutely for you. I don't know. I think because of how talked up this franchise is, I think maybe my expectation was built up a little bit more than what was on the screen.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy it. But I do think in terms of horror movies in general, it was quite mid.
Yeah, it's very straightforward.
Yeah.
Which I suppose you could say that might be one of the things that makes it enjoyable, is that it doesn't beat around the bush.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's one of those... You've said it before about Friday the 13th. It is kind of exactly what it says on the tin sort of deal.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily bogged down in very heavy plot or very heavy lore, although that might change in some of the later ones, I assume. But for this instance, this particular outing, it is just... It's a slasher film, and you kind of want to see a few people get killed. Yeah. You know, and that's exactly what it does.
And it does have an element of mystery, because you don't know who the killer is.
Yeah. I think I kind of knew beforehand. I think we have discussed it before.
That might have been because I told you.
Yeah. Yeah. But I said while we were watching it, didn't I? I can imagine when it first came out, being in cinemas and watching it for the first time, the tension that must have existed from not knowing
who the killer
is and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I can see why it was so talked about back when it would have come out.
Because another really interesting part of it is that you're kind of suspecting who the killer might be, but you're not actually introduced to the killer until like 20 minutes before the film ends?
Yeah, around that mark, yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. Because throughout the majority of the film, you're being introduced to these characters, but none of them are the killer.
Yeah, that's a point. I've personally, and you might have done a little better than I did, found it really hard to keep track of characters' names because it's just person who gets killed number 1 and person who gets killed number 2 and Kevin Bacon. And person who gets killed number 3. So I found it's not important. That's the thing though. It's not important. You don't need to know these characters' names. You don't need to know much about their lives or their backstory. All you need to know is they're at this cabin by the lake and they're going to get killed.
The only part where the film actually takes care or puts care into some characters is the killer.
Yeah.
Because we learn a bit more about her. So the killer, again, major spoilers, you've been warned. The killer is a woman called Mrs. Voorhees. Is her first name Pamela?
I don't know. I don't remember it being mentioned. Maybe.
It might be, yeah, something like that. She is the mother of Jason Voorhees, who in the later movies becomes the main antagonist. But in this, it's Mrs. Voorhees, and her motive is that she's killing all of these camp counselors because she blames all of them for the death of her son, because her son was at that camp, and while some camp counselors were having Jason was in the lake, couldn't swim, shouting for help, and he drowned.
Yeah.
And so his mum has gone out of her way to get her revenge on all of the camp counselors. And she's gone a bit doolally along the way.
Yeah, a bit doolally.
Bit doolally.
She's got a bit doolally. Yeah. But that sort of motive for the killer really gave me some real strong Psycho vibes. First cropped up, I think it's during the first kill, when it's in 1958?
Yes.
And the first kill that you see on screen, there's a little musical sort of vignette, a little motif that really made me think of Hitchcock's Psycho, the shower scene.
Yeah.
And the music in that. And then kind of that was ingrained in the back of my mind while I was watching it. And then there were loads of different elements at different points, particularly when they introduced Mrs. Voorhees, where I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of really leaning into the Psycho vibe. Yeah. Especially the kind of, I don't know, split personality kind of trope towards the end where
Killer mommy.
Yeah, Jason's speaking through her. Yeah, gave me some real strong Psycho vibes. So you can see the inspiration for it, and you know the source material for all that is really, really good.
Because it's quite famous now that Friday the 13th is very well known now to essentially be a copy and paste of Halloween.
Yeah. I do think it pulls it off well. I mean, the parallels are absolutely there, and you can see them very crystal clear. But then, obviously, you get those other influences. Where there's a little hint of Psycho in there. There's, there's probably some more films that I'm not quite remembering the titles of right now. But you can see the inspiration. I found that really interesting. Another thing that something I kind of questioned before we started watching was something I wanted to kind of discuss with you, is what it is about this film that made it worthy of sequels and worthy of a big franchise as opposed to other horror films of the time. What is it about Friday the 13th, do you think?
Well, at that point, there were other horror movies that were being made and were getting sequels. So the first one came out in 1980. I believe it was 1978 when the first Halloween came out. I believe I'm right in saying that. I believe it was 1974 when the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out. So throughout that time, those films were also getting sequels.
Yeah.
So I believe, I can easily imagine the director, Sean Cunningham, who also produced it, saw the potential that this had to make a sequel. Because at the end, you see the protagonist, she's in the canoe, and she looks in the distance and she sees those police officers.
Yes.
And they're like calling out to her, and all the nice music's playing, and then all of a sudden this really horrific deformed Jason jumps out and grabs her.
Yeah. The one thing that made me jump, but only because you knew it was coming and screamed at the same time.
I did, yeah. It was funny. And then she suddenly wakes up in the hospital and she's like, But the boy. What about the boy? Jason. Ma'am. We didn't find any boy. Then he's still there.
Ben's Friday the 13th one-man show will be coming to theatres near you soon. The boy.
And then it cuts to like this very long shot of the lake. And I can easily imagine the director sort of looked at that and was like, we can explore more movies with Jason. And then somehow they just came up with this concept that Jason is this unkillable machine.
Yeah. I was half expecting that final shot where it zooms into the lake to just kind of hear... like, Jason, he is still there. He's in the lake. I see some like bubbling and I don't know. But it confused me because it's like, is Jason alive? Is he a ghost? Is he a figment of her imagination? He obviously isn't because he comes back in the sequels. So does he have some kind of powers? You breathe underwater? I don't get the context for it.
Yeah, it's not very well explained.
Well, it seems to me like, you know, they set their sights on doing a sequel. How do we do that? Oh, we have Jason, and thus Jason's very, very loose lore and backstory was born.
Yeah,
purely out of the need for doing a sequel.
It's interesting because in the first one, when you first see Jason, he's very clearly still a child. But in the second one, which takes place not long after the first one, it's almost like he's had a massive growth spurt because he's suddenly a fully grown man.
You've outgrown all your clothes, Jason. We'll have to go to Matalan again now.
Buy them, Mummy. Buy them. And then in all of the second one, he's got a bag on his head. And then he doesn't get the hockey mask until part 3.
That's really bizarre, because that's sort of the most iconic thing about the franchise, isn't it?
I can't remember why he decides to wear the hockey mask. And then obviously from then on, he's always got the hockey mask on.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we'll find out, because I think we're, in doing this, committing to gradually watching all of them.
We're going to watch every single one of the Friday the 13th, including Freddy vs. Jason and the remake.
Good. I'm very much looking forward to the one in space.
Jason X.
Another point as well is, obviously, it's quite a common horror trope that, you know, it's cabin in the woods, cabin by the lake, cabin fever.
Yeah.
What is it about that setting that is so ingrained in horror? Why is that such a scary...
I think because it worked so well in Friday the 13th that other filmmakers then started to borrow that for their movies because they've seen it works.
Yeah.
But you can take any location and if you do it right, you can make it scary.
Yeah. I don't know, it just seems like cabins, like that sort of American country cabins...
Middle of nowhere.
Yeah, really crop up in horror so much. And do you think it was this that cemented that as a thing?
It might have been. There might have been other horror movies at the time that had a Evil Dead.
Oh yeah, Evil Dead.
Evil Dead was also in a cabin in the woods. Wasn't on a camp though.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that setting of just being in the middle of nowhere.
So it's more about the isolation of it as opposed to anything else. Okay, that makes sense.
Even though there are multiple police officers that we see in Friday the 13th
yeah,
who do nothing.
Absolute idiots.
Yeah. Some of the characters in this, I believe, also started the trope of some of the really typical other characters that you always see in horror movies.
Okay.
So when you see a character do something clearly stupid and you just think, just die.
Yeah.
Just die. Like the woman at the beginning who was hitchhiking.
Yeah. And
what was the first thing I said?
Don't do that, you silly It's so dangerous.
It's true.
Yeah.
You should never hitchhike.
Yeah, hitchhiking is just a really dangerous practice. And when she first appeared on screen, I genuinely thought she was going to be the protagonist. She was going to be, you know, the kind of point of view character that we follow. So I was kind of surprised when she gets picked up by the second hitchhiker and ends up getting killed. But again, you said... Why are you running into the woods, you stupid idiot?
Yeah, she hitchhikes into this car. You never see the driver because obviously the driver is the killer. The driver's speeding up. And then so she eventually jumps out of the car. And instead of sticking to the road and finding her way back, she just runs straight into the woods.
Yeah, further away from people that could help.
Yeah, and you're running into the woods, which is essentially a maze. You're going to get lost.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, if you are in that situation, it might be sort of the blind panic taking over.
I respectfully disagree. I just think she's a dumb
okay. Well, I suppose, you know, my first thing is run to help, not to trees. You know, like someone's coming at me with a machete. Quick, the bushes. It's not my first port of call. Yeah. Also, that bit where she talks to the dog.
Oh my god, yeah. So one of the notes I put in my phone, as soon as I saw that, what was it? Hang on, where is it? A hiking woman asking a dog, "Do you speak English?" is not to be trusted.
What's that, lassie? There's someone in the well? Quick, let's go.
If you were someone else, let's say you've gone out, you're thinking, "It's a really nice day. I'm going to go to a cafe, I'm going to get some grub, have a nice brew." Yeah. And you're really enjoying the day. And someone's dog is just sitting outside, very polite, very friendly. Yeah. Some woman stops by with a big bag on her back. And instead of coming over to you to be like, "Oh, can you tell me where so-and-so is?" she goes up to this person's dog and goes, "Do you speak English?" I'd be like, "Where the f*** am I? Who the f*** are you?"
Is this your pet? Excuse me? Yeah.
Such a random scene.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. It was around that same point where I was about to give the introduction credit for being so quiet. It was really kind of like quiet, silent, understated introduction to this character that I genuinely thought was kind of going to be the sort of audience surrogate character. And I was like, do you know, I like how slow this introduction is, how sort of gentle it is almost. And then the first line is her talking to this dog like a moron and immediately undercut any praise I had to give.
And then it just went downhill from there.
Yeah, it really did.
I'm quite interested in this note that you put saying that the POV shots aren't used as much as they used to be.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time where POV shots were used that extensively in a film.
Because for those who haven't seen it, again, spoilers, throughout the majority of the film, whenever the killer strikes, it's always from the killer's point of view. Obviously, because you don't find out who the killer is until basically right near the end of the film. So whenever the killer is committing a murder, it's always from their point of view.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting.
Well, the thing with that, I think, is it's the whole show don't tell thing, right? If you want to raise the tension, it's more about what you don't show than what you do. But you want to capture those kills still. You know, you want all the practical effects and the gore and stuff to kind of still show through. So what's the most efficient way of doing that without having to do a million shots in a scene that keeps the killer out of view?
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is a POV shot, which, you know, is a way of sort of applying it to the film that makes logical sense. But it does help the tension building. And it's sort of a technique that seems very of its time. It seems like, you know, a lot of films around the 80s, particularly horrors, would have done that kind of thing. But I can't remember, like, the most modern film I've seen recently with it in. Couldn't tell you.
No, nor can I. There's also very clearly moments when we're seeing from the killer's point of view and the killer's striking on a victim, that it's very clearly not the actress who played Mrs. Voorhees.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's true.
Like, there's one in particular where the killer's grabbing someone by the neck, pins him to a wall. It's very clearly a man. It's not this really small, gentle-like woman who's then revealed to be a psychopath. It's this rather tall, bulky dude. Obviously, you never see his face, but you look at his hands and you're thinking, that's not a woman.
You don't know, maybe she just got really hench for that scene.
What, and then lost it all towards the end? Yeah,
just went really method, or she was doing another role at the time that demanded her to bulk up a little bit, maybe.
Oh, the classic theme tune.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, I really like that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I've definitely heard it at some point, but I don't think I ever made the connection that it was the theme tune to Friday the 13th, like, genuinely ever. You made... Because it crops up quite a few times throughout the film, and you made the brilliant comment that, I wonder if the killer's going through the forest, like, humming that to themselves. I couldn't get it out of my head.
Killer's got a knife, walking through the woods, sees victims. Victims just look over. You're not very subtle, mate. We can hear you.
You're like running, like, you know, like in Scooby-Doo, how they like hide behind a plant bush.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, behind something else, like a piece of furniture, and like you can see them kind of scuttling between the two. I can just imagine Mrs. Voorhees just sort of crouched down, like going from hiding place to hiding place, and as she's moving, going, "Kill her, mommy, kill her." Yeah.
But no, it's so simple, but it's so effective, and it's used in every single, maybe not every, I don't think it's used in Jason X.
Oh.
I don't think there's ever a moment where you're seeing him through the ship going. But yeah, it's a classic moment. And if you've ever played Friday the 13th the game, which I have, it's quite fun. You literally just play. You're either a counselor, or you're Jason. If you're a counselor, you have to get away and survive Jason. If you're Jason, you've got to go and kill the counselors.
Okay.
When you're a counselor, it's way scarier because whenever you're running, but whenever you hear the he's nearby.
Oh, okay.
So you've got to really run.
Yeah, so it's used quite effectively then.
Yeah.
Good.
I love how you put love the camp counselor couple trope sneaking off the time.
Yeah, like it didn't take long for the tropes to set in, did it?
No.
That's still in the 1958 period sequence at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you could see it coming a mile away. Like the two counselors sneak off and they start kissing, and then they start having.
And there was no like build up to it.
No.
It's like it starts off with them two along with these other camp counselors, and they're all sort of sat in a circle playing a guitar,
singing Kumbaya.
Yeah. And then as soon as obviously during the song, you've got this male and this female counselor who are clearly making very strong eye contact.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the song ends, they just get straight back up and just walk off. If I was one of those other counselors, we'd know what they were going to go do.
They're going to go smash.
We'd be like, oh, they're going to go have fun, guys.
Yeah. And then they sneak off. And immediately, like the moment they start kissing, it's like, well, you're dead then.
That is literally... As soon as we saw them kissing, we instantly looked at each other and we're like, they're dead.
Yep.
And I added to that note saying, I believe this film built on the trope that if you have you're destined to be killed off.
Yeah, it happens in like most horror films. If a character has they are destined to die.
Well, it's like they say that the final girl, the girl who always survives, is normally a virgin.
Oh, okay. So that kind of threw me a little bit.
It's become a trope.
Is that an actual trope?
Yeah.
Okay.
They say it a lot in the Scream movie because obviously Scream is it's almost like they take the out of the tropes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
They say in the first one like the only way you can survive is if you're a virgin.
Right. I genuinely didn't know that.
Yeah.
But it's not something they specify. Here's your protagonist. And yes, they are a virgin.
Well, obviously back then it wasn't a trope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's kind of been coined later then?
Later on,
right.
Yeah. Because more movies started doing it.
I was going to say, because at one point she's playing strip Monopoly, for sake.
Yeah, no.
That intrigues me.
Yeah. And that you see that go on in all of the Friday the 13th movies. Whenever you see characters having dead. Just instantly dead.
Instantly?
Well, not instantly.
Like they finish and just
no.
pop the clogs.
It's not even Jason that kills them, it's the that kills them.
Just having so good.
Oh god, I'm near.
As they nut.
They've nutted so much, it's not that comes out of his it's just a sound.
Oh,
we're going to have to bleep a lot of that.
Yeah. Might even end up getting cut.
The people listening are like, what are they talking about? What are they mentioning?
The bleep. The use of slow-mo was pretty good at the beginning.
Yeah, a little bit. I'd say it was a little corny. Because, yeah, you've got that at the beginning with the female counsellor sort of running into the corner and it all goes slow-mo. And then it, like, fades to the title card. And then you've got that other moment near the end where the protagonist decapitates Mrs. Voorhees.
Yeah, that one was dumb.
Because it's the face that she makes when she's running to, like, her eyes go really wide and her mouth goes really wide. It's, like, really sort of cartoonish.
Yeah. It's once the decapitations happened for me and the hands go up and she just falls really slowly.
Oh, yeah. Her hands are in the air and she's, like, clenching her fists.
Yeah.
like, no!
I'll be back, you meddling kids.
I'll be there next time. Catch it.
Ah, yes, my new co-host, Dr. Claw.
Oh, my God, the crazy old man.
Oh, the crazy old man, okay.
You never found out what happened to him.
I want to see a film set around him.
A spin-off.
Yeah.
It's just about him.
Yeah. He'd mad as a hatter.
He'll never come back again.
Yeah, just the way his line delivery was just so
It's got a death curse.
How does he know? That's a good point. Like, I get, like, there's a whole sort of, like, all the townsfolk are like, ooh, the lake is really cursed or whatever. But he seems to know more than everybody else. Is he into the occult?
I mean, if Mrs. Voorhees has been killing since 1958, which, by the way, how f***ing useless of a police officer do you have to be to not notice that there have been killings for, like, the past 20-odd years?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, maybe it just caught on that, oh, if you go to Camp Crystal Lake, you're gonna get killed?
Yeah. Or maybe he did see, he saw some killings and he went to report it and they were like, you're just mad.
Again, terrible, useless police officers who aren't doing their job.
That could be an interesting story in the universe about how this one person was trying to spread the truth and was deemed mad and...
But could you explain why he was hiding in the pantry?
No, I mean, he might have just been looking for a snack.
And then as he's leaving, he's like, you're doomed. You're all doomed.
And also, you're out of butter.
Also, why is your butter in the pantry? It should be in the fridge.
Yeah. You sickos.
And I'm the crazy one.
Sometimes I just think about kissing women.
Oh dear.
That was such a just ridiculous line.
It was a ridiculous line. It's a line that one of the random counsellors say. And they're like, because it's like, it's Kevin Bacon making out with his girlfriend, and then there's the guy next to them driving, and he's like, sometimes I just like thinking about kissing women.
Cool. Moving on. It's like, I'm going to announce this ridiculous thought that shouldn't even be voiced.
But then there's the other character as well, who goes up to the protagonist and goes, you're very talented. And very pretty.
Oh, yeah.
I've put a particular individual's... I'm not going to say the name.
Yeah, let's not name this individual.
No, but I put a particular individual's name next to these quotes.
Yeah, it did give off the vibe, didn't it? Yeah.
Because he used to say some weird...
Like, I think everyone in life will know someone like this, where they'll just... It's usually a straight man who thinks that they're being real cool and suave when they're talking to women, but in actual fact...
They're just being creepy.
Slimy. And just say really out-of-pocket, off-handed things.
Yeah.
And you think, why do you think that was okay to say?
And it's like they think that's going to get them what they want.
Yeah.
That could not be further from the truth.
Yeah, and I really got that particular person vibe from those lines of dialogue. But I think lines like that appear a lot in films of the period, I suppose. Does that not speak to sort of maybe Hollywood's sort of rampant sexism a little bit?
Yeah.
You watch films that are of a certain age now, and when you're watching them now, you go, oh, that's not okay to say.
This did not age well.
Yeah. And those particular lines were just not...
No.
They were quite cringe.
Yeah. And speaking of Kevin Bacon, this film stars a very young Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting him to crack out a Footloose dance. I genuinely didn't know he was in this. I genuinely didn't know until we started watching it, and you went, "That's Kevin Bacon." I was like, was this one of the first things he ever did?
I believe it was. Yeah,
that's mad.
This was way before Footloose.
Yeah.
So, I suppose you could say Friday the 13th might have been his big break, because it's still a Hollywood movie. And then after that, maybe that's when he started getting bigger and better roles.
Yeah, maybe. But, you attach a name like that to a project, and obviously now he's a huge name, but obviously back then
he was just an actor trying to get into the business.
Yeah, and so when you pointed him out, I was like, oh, well, he's going to be significant throughout the entirety of this film. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, because Kevin Bacon gets skewered.
Yes.
It's quite a cool death as well.
Yeah, I actually think his was probably the most interesting one of the lot. Did very much enjoy that.
Because he's laying on the bed and he's smoking. I don't know if it's a joint or it might have been a joint. And then he notices there's like a drop of blood hits his head. And he looks up because there's another death victim. It's Ned. We'll talk about Ned in a minute.
We were really concerned about Ned.
Oh, God, we love Ned. And then he looks up and all of a sudden a hand from underneath his bed comes and grabs him by the head and then puts... What is it? Like a... It's like a spear.
Or...
No, it looked like a spear.
I don't know.
And like pokes it all the way through his neck.
Yeah, so it's come up from the bottom of the bed, through the mattress.
And like blood squirting
And I genuinely wasn't expecting it. Like most of them, you can kind of see the deaths coming, but like that, it genuinely caught me off guard.
Yeah. But it was once we saw him having with his girlfriend, we're like, you're dead.
You're dead.
And you put probably the best note out of all of these saying she's getting a pound of bacon.
She's getting a pound of bacon.
Oh, it's brilliant. Her death was also pretty cool. She gets the axe in
with
the face.
The axe, yeah. Well, they build the tension for that really nicely because you can kind of see the shadow being cast by the axe as it's held aloft, sort of behind her, like maybe like sort of 20 or so seconds before the death actually occurs. And prior to that, like the tension builds because she's investigating. She's heard like a noise or something. Yeah, I really like how that, like, not the most interesting death, but the way the tension built was really good for that particular one, I think.
And the effect, the actual effect. The practical effect of the axe in her face, was pretty good.
You see it fucking like go in there, like that's.
Well, no, very cleverly you don't. So you see the shot of the axe being raised in the air. You see the shot of her screaming. You see the shot of the axe coming down. And then it cuts to the light, sort of swinging.
Oh, swinging, yeah.
And then it cuts to her falling back, and the axe is already in her face.
Yeah.
So you hear the noise of the impact.
Yeah.
But obviously back then they probably wouldn't have been able to do the effect of actually it going into the face.
So was that a prosthetic then? Because that was very convincing.
So that was the actress.
Yeah.
And they probably would have had like a fake axe where the front was probably cut off.
Yeah.
And then they put all the latex around the part of the face where they stick the axe on.
Yeah.
To make it look like it's gone into her face.
Yeah.
So it's very clever. Tom Savini was the special effects artist, very famous special effects artist.
That was really good. The first death of the hitchhiker, I think, was really bland.
It was, yeah,
because like I say, we were saying she was running into the forest, and then she sort of just kind of trips up and absolutely eats, landing face first, and then she kind of looks up to the killer, kind of stood in front of her, and just kind of stands there, kind of meekly, just going, "No, no." No, and just doesn't fight it, and the sort of the strike of like the knife across the neck didn't even seem like it had that much power in it. It was like sort of gently stroking across the neck, just like caressed it, and then just starts blood.
Yeah,
it was.
I mean, the effect was quite cool.
Yeah, the effect was cool, and like, you know, the way that the blood drips and stuff, like, and I suppose the consistency of it as well. You know, that's good. But the actual strike itself and the build up to it was naff.
If only the killer like whispered to her, "That's what you get for hitchhiking." Let's talk about Ned.
Oh, my boy Ned.
So I believe, Ned is the character who said the line, "Sometimes I just think about kissing women."
Yeah, which was cringy, but we warmed to Ned.
We did eventually warm to Ned because Ned was kind of a joker, wasn't he? He was always pulling pranks and always having a laugh and taking the.
He was always laughing and smiling.
Always willing to make a fool of himself.
Yeah.
But eventually, Ned got it.
He did absolutely get it. Thing is, I don't understand the context of
Ned?
of Ned.
I don't understand the context of Ned.
So he's out by the lake, and you can see Kevin Bacon and his squeeze across the lake.
His squeeze.
You know, they're across the lake, and they're walking, talking, being all lovey-dovey and stuff.
Yeah.
And he kind of looks across at them a bit forlornly and sort of sighs to himself. And he just kind of walks away whistling. And he kind of walks past, was it a cabin, a building,
There's a cabin,
like a boathouse or something.
And he hears a noise.
And any normal person would go, "I'm not going to go in there."
But not Ned.
No.
Because Ned, he's curious.
Yeah, maybe it was a squirrel that he could train to do circus tricks.
Maybe it was someone from his past coming to visit him.
Dad?
And so, when Ned hears the noise, he's going, "Hello? Is someone there? Hello?" Ned enters the cabin. Don't see Ned again for a while.
Yeah.
You know, there's a moment when Kevin's with his squeeze.
With his squeeze.
And she's like, "Oh, Ned's always joking around. I don't like it." And Kevin Bacon's like, "Neddy!
Yeah.
Oh, Neddy!"
Bearing in mind at this point, they've made their way around the lake and are now sat directly outside the cabin in which Ned entered and did not return from. So Ned's in there, right? Getting up.
And that we know of, because you don't actually see Ned get killed. Happens off screen.
Kevin Bacon and his squeeze. I don't know why I chose that word. But they're sat outside and they hear nothing. And they're literally shouting for it. "Neddy! Neddy!" And they don't hear a thing.
And after Kevin Bacon and his squeeze have, she then goes off to do something. And Kevin Bacon's just left in his bed, and he's smoking his joint, and you see the drop of blood come from the top bunk. The dead body on the top bunk is Ned, and his throat has been cut.
Yeah.
And I remember while we were watching it, my reaction when the camera goes up and we see it's Ned, I went, Ned! No! No, not you!
He just liked kissing women. That'll be his eulogy.
Oh, the scene when Ned was pretending to drown in the lake.
Oh, no, you mentioned something about the screenplay not being that long, and so there are some moments that are kind of filler.
Yeah.
And that to me is one of them, because I mean the idea is, you can kind of see that from the POV shot the killer is watching them from the trees.
You see that POV shot, you see them all in the lake, and you can just hear the killer.
Yeah, but what does it serve towards the plot? The only thing I can reasonably see it establishing is that Ned's a bit of a jokester, and what's the other? Is it Bill? Bill is like the sort of macho fella that'll talk sense into people or come to their rescue because he's like the first one to dive in to save him.
And Kevin Bacon, his character's name is Jack, but we're not going to refer to him as Jack.
No, it's Kevin Bacon.
Just Kevin Bacon.
But I don't think it serves the plot in any way. It doesn't really do much.
It doesn't add anything.
No.
It just shows that Ned's a bit of a...
So it's one of those needless scenes. There's also another one later on when... What's the main girl's name?
Do you know, I've completely forgotten. These characters are so forgettable.
Yeah, but genuinely, I said while we were watching it, I can't keep track of
I remember Brenda, but the only reason why is because I misheard the character saying Brenda, and I thought she said brain dead.
Yeah.
Brain dead!
Where are you, brain dead? I'll tell you what, some of those characters were brain dead.
Oh, yeah. We'll just refer to the protagonist as the final girl, because she basically is the final girl.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So the final girl. Bill and the final girl are in the cabin together, and they've been outside for, looking for people, I think.
Yeah.
They don't find anything on this first particular outing, then they go back to the cabin. And then Bill decides to go out again. What is it? Is he looking for fuel for the car or
do you know,
something?
I'm already forgetting parts of this film.
I can't remember. I remember I remember distinctly he's like, gas. So I assume he's looking for fuel for the car.
When you fart. Gas.
So he leaves, and I think the final girl, she falls asleep, does she?
Oh, yeah. She falls asleep on the sofa.
Yeah, and then she wakes up, and she kind of shouts, Bill! Bill!
Oh, I know exactly where you're going with this.
Yeah. And then she kind of goes to the kitchen, she puts a little kettle on the stove, boiling some water, and she gets a thought, I need to go in the pantry. She goes in the pantry, she comes back, gets what she needs, and she's just making a coffee. But it's genuinely, about 3 to 4 minutes of runtime of her just making this coffee. Not a word of dialogue spoken, and she's just kind of looking a bit pensive. Like I'm sure maybe in the direction of this scene, it's supposed to be like in her head. She's like, I wonder where Bill could be. But that doesn't come across. No, she looks like she's trying to remember really hard how to make a coffee.
And then it cuts to her in the woods going, Bill!
Like, you could have totally removed that scene of her making the f***ing drink.
Go from her waking up on the sofa, screaming Bill, and then her going into the woods to find him.
The only kind of shot you'd need in between, if at all, is her grabbing the raincoat.
Yeah.
You
don't need a drawn-out scene of her attempting to make a cup of coffee.
Yeah. I wonder what happened to Bill.
She also puts the mug on the stove.
While it's on?
Yeah.
Moron.
She's just there like, I think this is how you make coffee. Maybe I should go find Bill.
Yeah.
Bill!
I wonder if she put the milk in first.
Oh.
Then she really would have deserved to die.
She would. She would be one of those, wouldn't she?
Yeah. America.
Okay, so... We're kind of jumping back and forth from different points of the film.
Yeah.
But you put pointless cabin maintenance for exposition scene, guttering and tree stump. So it's the bit where before the guy says to her, "Oh, you're very talented and pretty." It's when she climbs up on a part of the cabin and she hits a bit of it with a hammer.
Yeah, once.
And
and then she just yep, that's done.
Yep,
comes
that's
down
it.
The ladder. Yeah.
My work here is done.
There's so many interested. So this is kind of the first scene where most of the councillors all meet each other.
Yeah.
And the car pulls up with Kevin Bacon and Ned and, I forget her name, but Kevin Bacon Squeeze in the car. And they pull up. And before any kind of introduction's made, this other guy's just like, come help me with this tree stump, will you? It's like, is it because you just don't want to have them standing around and introducing themselves and having this explanation? They need to be doing something while they're doing it. Oh, what could they be doing? Oh, I don't know, just lifting out a tree stump. But only one tree stump. Yeah. And it just seems like a thing throughout the entire film. If oh, where's this character? Oh, they're outside. And it cuts to them outside. And there's one where I think it is Ned. And he's just hacking at or is it Bill? He's just hacking at a bush with like a machete.
It's Ned. I think it is.
Yeah. And he's just hacking at a bush. You think, the f*** are you doing that for?
No, there's the scene where the police officer comes to visit them, and what? Ned, it's like he's turned himself into a Indian.
Yeah.
And he's just jumping around, going, just making a fool of himself, and I'm sat there, are you 5?
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm at this camp, I'm walking around, like, what should I do? You know, I could go fishing, go for a swim, have a nice walk, go read in the cabin, go play some guitar in the cabin, go play strip Monopoly. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll strip down to just my pants and run around pretending to be a Native American, really stereotypically.
That's not gonna rub the police officer off the wrong way, is it?
No, absolutely not.
Oh my god. So speaking of the guy who forces them to help him with the tree stump, we'll call him Creepy Mustache Guy.
Creepy Mustache Guy, okay.
Because he's got a mustache and he's a bit creepy. His death scene.
Oh god, right, yeah. So I don't know why did he leave the camp in the first instance? Is it because he had a fallout with the final girl?
I can't remember. He gets a lift from someone.
Yeah, like he came onto her and she was like, no. And he just kind of leaves the camp, and then he's in this diner later on.
Yeah.
And decides to make his way back towards the camp, and his car breaks down. He ends up hitchhiking off the police officer, and then kind of has to walk the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And as he's, gets to the big sign for the camp, he walks up and it just stops dead and just looks like, and it just looks like he just hit an invisible wall. Don't really see what happened to him.
I remember it was as we were watching it, as he's approaching the camp, it all gets really quiet. And you said, do you know, I really like how quiet these scenes are. And as soon as you said it, a torch comes on and the music's going, dun 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 dun.
Yeah. Well, I like how it uses music sparingly. I like how the music is only there to highlight something.
Yeah.
Not every scene needs some backing track of some kind or some underlying single note to build tension. The silence is what builds the tension. And I think that it's something I kind of commend it for, is how it's willing to have those quiet moments and let the tension build psychologically within the audience, rather than it being like, oh, look, there's an ominous note of music playing, so therefore this scene is tense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the music being used so sparingly, I think, was really effective.
And obviously because all the killings are done from the killer's POV, we see him walking closer towards the killer. He's got, oh, hi, what are you doing down here? And then all of a sudden he makes a facial expression that looks like he's really shocked, and it's because he's being stabbed, but it looks more like he stubbed his toe.
Yeah.
It's like, oh!
Ooh! Oh, my toe!
And again with the music just going, dun 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 dun. Oh, there's the obligatory shot.
Yeah, every sort of horror film of that period's got one.
Yeah, or, I mean, I'm pretty sure horror movies nowadays still kind of do it. Not all of them.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's the scene where Kevin Bacon and his squeeze are having and they finish. And
it does seem they really did stop at nothing to get the girls in nothing but bikinis at any point they could.
There are quite a few moments where, like, one of the girls are is wearing nothing but a shirt and knickers.
Like, I get, like, when they're swimming out by the dock and stuff, like, obviously that makes sense for the scene.
Yeah.
But, like, the inclusion of strip Monopoly, for example, was that really necessary? I mean, I get, there's supposed to be young adults and they're all kind of flirty and that's the kind of vibe. But I don't know, it just forcing these actors out of their clothes for this scene just because. Yeah. Just because.
The scene, okay. Yeah, I guess I can understand that. It's a couple. They want to go out and make love. Make love? What did I say?
Make love.
No. And then Kevin Bacon is hugging her from behind, and you see her breasts on screen. And that, I imagine... Well, no, that wasn't the first one. Halloween did it first.
Yeah.
There's an obligatory shot in Halloween. I suppose, again, Friday the 13th was borrowing from that. being like, oh, Halloween did it, and people clearly like that, so we need to do it. We need to have a boob shot, a scene, have both these characters get killed, because both characters who have in Halloween get killed.
Okay. It's like a checklist.
Yeah, basically. It's literally Friday the 13th is basically just a copy and paste version of Halloween with a few things changed.
Yeah. Did Halloween have strip monopoly?
It did not.
Well,
so I believe Friday the 13th might have been the first horror movie to do that.
Okay. It just reminded me of that meme that's been going around recently where it's like, I don't have enough money to pay rent, but I'll have to find some way to sort that. And, it's like the insinuation is that they start stripping off and it's like everyone else playing Monopoly, and I think it's a photo of Willem Dafoe looking really confused from Spider-Man. I don't know, just made me think of that. But then there's also, they're playing this game of strip Monopoly, and then for some reason this one girl decides she needs to go back to her cabin or something. She's left the window open.
Oh, yeah.
And rather than putting all her clothes back on in the middle of the night in a thunderstorm when it's down with rain, she just gets up in just a underwear and just puts a very, very thin sort of
raincoat on.
Yeah, like a poncho.
And then goes out.
And just goes out. Just leaves all her clothes.
It's like, love, put your clothes back on.
Yeah. And it just seems like it's like, oh, well, we'll just keep her in her underwear for this scene because we can.
It's literally because I think I can easily imagine maybe the actress who was playing this character, it was Brenda or Braindead. Braindead! The actress who was playing Braindead probably said, wait, why is my character just in a bra and underwear going out? Shouldn't she put her clothes on? And I can easily imagine the director and producer being like, no, like, it's fine, like, put on the raincoat, because this is going to attract more viewers. We're going to get more people watching it because it's really and just being really weird about it.
Yeah, bad vibe.
Very bad.
Bad vibe. Like, this is the thing, the inclusion of the strip Monopoly thing is a weird thing, but you could kind of justify it if, upon deciding to leave, she puts her clothes back on as she's saying her goodbyes and then leaves the cabin. And then, it kind of fits. It's these teenagers that are all very charged and, kind of like really keen on seeing each other naked.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of makes sense. There's also that one line of dialogue where Bill ends up taking off a boot. Takes off a boot. What was the line the final girl says? Says something like, I'm really starting to like this game. It's like, it's alright, love, he's just taking off a boot.
He's just taking off a boot. Like,
you're not seeing much yet.
You could argue that when Braindead takes off her shirt and actually removes her clothes, you could argue then by saying, oh, okay, now the game's getting good.
Yeah, but after a boot.
But after a boot, no. It's not really eventful.
I know. Just the inclusion of that as a concept just was a bit weird.
Yeah.
Really a bit.
The film has the protagonist isn't the worst, but the film does have a very strong female antagonist.
Yeah. Now, I stress again the point that when the film opened on the hitchhiker, I was dead certain she was going to be the POV character, the protagonist. But she wasn't. We're not introduced to the final girl till about maybe, 20 minutes in-ish? And realistically, she doesn't do all that much.
No.
She does some maintenance on a cabin, goes for a swim.
Gets hit on a couple of times by some creepy dudes.
Yeah, plays strip Monopoly, plays a bit of guitar, has a little nap, goes looking for Bill.
Goes looking for Braindead.
Yeah, and then she eventually stumbles upon Bill's body and realises there's a killer. And then that's when her characterisation finally kicks in.
Yeah.
Because, and you pointed it out, she runs to a cabin and she starts barricading herself in, and she does something really clever to begin with.
Yeah.
Where she ties a rope to the door handle and then ties the other end to a beam in the cabin.
Yeah.
So the door can't be opened from the outside.
But then she does something quite dumb shortly afterwards.
Yeah.
She's done it because so that the killer can't pull the door open. But then she proceeds to put a bunch of items in front of the door. It's like, well, hang on a minute.
Yeah, if the door opens from the outside, and that rope gives way,
those items aren't going to do anything.
Yeah, because he doesn't have to push against the door and the furniture because it's pulling the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she showed some promise.
Yeah, and then was immediately let down by her. Yeah. But up until that point of discovering the body, she just felt like another one of the counsellors. She didn't feel like any character of any particular significance.
Yeah, it wasn't until she did that, as well as kill Mrs. Voorhees.
Yeah,
that she was just a bit of a useless character for the most part.
I actually don't think any of the counsellors particularly stuck out to me as particularly noteworthy, other than my boy Ned, obviously, who just likes kissing women,
and of course Kevin Bacon. But that's only because he's Kevin Bacon.
But no, yeah, I got a general sense that he's like, I can't really tell who the protagonist is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But then I suppose the protagonist really is the killer, I guess.
In a way, yeah.
Well, they are the antagonist, I guess. But Mrs. Voorhees was really good. It's a bit of a cheesy performance, but it's a good performance.
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm sure you've as well. Like, I've heard arguments over the years where people have said there aren't any good movies with female leads or female villains and stuff like that. I mean, well, for starters, you've got the Alien movies, in which the protagonist in all 4 of them is a woman.
Yeah, Sigourney
Weaver.
What an absolute cinema titan.
Yeah, she's a badass in those movies. Friday the 13th, you've got the protagonist isn't the worst, but she's not the best, but you have a really creepy, strong female antagonist. And there's a great moment at the end where they're having a bit of a standoff, and then eventually gets a head cut off.
Yeah, my only sort of rebuttal, I suppose, is I forget the name of the test now, but you can apply it to many films. The idea of how can you tell if you've got good female characters in a film, and it's when you can have a scene with 2 women together where they don't talk about what are the 2 things. Men is one of them. Let me look this up quickly.
Well, that same test can be applied to writing a good male character. Don't have them talk about women.
Yeah, that's true. The Bechdel test, that's it. The test asks whether a work features at least 2 female characters who have a conversation about something other than a man. And so...
That's kind of a stupid test, if I'm being honest.
Do you think?
Yeah, because any good writer knows, should know, that if you're going to write a scene with 2 female characters, a good writer will know not to have them talk about stupid, pointless like men.
Yeah, but then you're going off the assumption that every writer in Hollywood is good.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. I know.
Yeah.
I know there are many writers in Hollywood who are terrible.
Yeah, but no. I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, a good writer wouldn't have to even try using that as a test because the writing would be good in the first place. Yeah.
And thankfully, because there are good writers out there in the industry, we do have movies, TV shows, plays, music. We do have a lot of stuff out there that have amazing female characters.
Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of movies of that period would fail that test.
I will have to agree with you on that.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in the case of Friday the 13th, yeah, we've got a relatively strong female protagonist and a female antagonist, but they do talk about a man. I suppose obviously in the case of Mrs. Voorhees, it's her son, so it's not quite in the same context, but the protagonist, the final girl, they do have that element of the sort of male interactions or talking about men. That does happen.
Yeah, I suppose Nightmare on Elm Street could be one of the few films back then that tried to tackle that, because you have a very strong female lead in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, Nancy, played by Heather Langenkamp, and there is never a moment where she has a scene. I don't think there's ever a moment where she even talks about having.
Yeah,
she's a very caring character. She cares about her friends, and when bad starts to happen, she genuinely wants to know why. And then when she figures out that there's Freddy Krueger, this demon who kills you in your sleep, she then goes out of her way to try to beat him.
Right? Yeah. So I suppose then that isn't in essence a strong female protagonist. But I do think it does count against the
countless other movies
that don't pass the test.
No.
Because, in essence, a good female protagonist doesn't necessarily have to do anything different than a male protagonist would.
No.
And like you say, a good writer will know that. A good writer wouldn't have to apply this test to see if their work is good.
Yeah, if I was to read a script where the male characters, let's say they're very well written, but the female characters are very underwritten.
Yeah.
And all they serve in the script is, I don't know, talking about men, taking their clothes off, 1 or 2 scenes. I'd put that script down and I'd say to the writer, why are you treating the women like they're thick?
Yeah, okay.
Because women aren't thick.
No, absolutely not.
Don't get me wrong, there are both men and women in the world who are not the brightest, but there are also plenty of men and women in the world who are extremely intelligent, extremely respectful people, good people, strong people. I've known and met many women in my life who I'd much rather be with than most men.
Yeah.
So
the writing needs to be representative of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I was, because I'm a judge on a film festival.
Yes.
So if I was to score that kind of screenplay, I would not give it a high score.
Yeah, because the balance is wrong.
Very off.
Yeah, blatant sexism.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And maybe the writer didn't mean it that way, and they could say that, oh, no, I didn't mean it that. It doesn't matter how you meant it.
Yeah.
Regardless of the fact your screenplay has come out, essentially, you're downgrading women.
Yeah.
When there are plenty of men in the world who are dumb and talk about women and just want to have all the time.
Well, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, because a lot of the male characters in Friday the 13th do the same thing.
Exactly.
Ned.
Yeah. Ned.
He just wants to kiss women.
He just likes thinking about kissing women.
Oh, yeah, not actually kissing women, just thinking about it. So I suppose you poke the hole in my logic there is like the men in Friday the 13th do the exact same thing. So I suppose in that essence they are on a level playing field. Okay, yeah.
It's like in the Alien movie. I'm using this example again, but in the Sigourney Weaver, very, very beautiful woman, but at the same time, she's a badass.
Oh, she kicks.
She's extremely intelligent and intuitive, and she uses all of that to her advantage to defeat the creature. And there is a moment in the first one where she's very slowly, because she doesn't want the creature to see her. Again, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen Alien. She's trying to sneak her way into this spacesuit because she wants to shoot the creature off into space.
Okay.
But while she's doing so, she's wearing nothing but a top and knickers. Now, okay, you could argue that were they just doing that to add a little bit of appeal?
Yeah.
Or was it just because at the time, in that moment of complete rush and panic, because there's a alien in the room with her, that she didn't give a about what she was wearing. She just wanted to get into that spacesuit and shoot this creature off into space.
Yeah, and I suppose we as the viewer don't necessarily have that wider context either.
Because there will be a lot of, I'm going to say men, because there are, let's be honest, there'll be a lot of men who will watch that scene and they'll be like, whoa.
Yeah.
That is normally the kind of reaction you get.
Yeah. I hate that reaction, by the way, as a thing, as a way of indicating I find this person attractive. Is by going, whoa. It's, oh no, it's just so gross and icky. Just, oh no, don't do that.
But thankfully, it is an intense scene because she's singing like a lullaby to herself to try to calm herself down.
Okay.
It's really it's very tense.
So, her attire is not the focus of this scene. The focus of the scene is the tension and how she's trying to
get away from this creature, kill the creature without getting herself killed. It just so happens that while she's trying to get into this spacesuit, she's wearing nothing but a top and knickers.
Yeah. So what you're saying is they need to put Sigourney Weaver in a Friday the 13th film.
Please just put a smart character in a Friday the 13th. Yeah. But then that might ruin the tradition of a Friday the 13th movie.
Well, I mean, maybe. But do you not think it would be a really interesting concept to see a really, really smart character taking on Jason?
Yeah, but then it would be a very short film.
But then you use this smart protagonist to highlight the brains of the antagonist and how they play off each other.
Yeah.
And that might make for some more interesting storytelling, some more interesting deaths.
I mean, there is a character in some of the later Friday the 13th movies who I suppose is the closest to that, and it's a character called Tommy Jarvis. He's first introduced in the fourth one. He's in number 5, he's in number 6, and then that's it. You never see him again.
Okay.
But I suppose he is the only character in those movies who manages to sort of outsmart Jason.
Okay.
And try to find different ways to beat him.
Do you think that lends itself to good storytelling?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
It certainly led to my favourite film in the franchise.
Yeah. So we need to put Sigourney Weaver.
we need Sigourney Weaver to play just a new character.
We'll not settle for any less.
No.
It needs to be her.
Teams up with Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah.
And they go after Jason. But it'll be Sigourney Weaver as Ripley.
In space!
In space!
So, do you think Mrs. Voorhees is a strong villain then?
Yeah, I do. Maybe not in the sense that, I don't know, if you think a lot of very high budget Hollywood movies that are genuinely very well written. Yeah. And they have a very strong antagonist. She's not, I wouldn't say she was the best written character.
No, but she leans into the tropes.
Yeah, and she is very creepy.
Yeah.
Because you don't expect, when you first see her, you don't expect this very small, rather frail woman to be the killer.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I knew it was coming, but again, it's putting yourself in the shoes of the audience watching it for the first time when it was first released.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have had a clue.
No.
And then when that switch happens where she's talking about
Jason.
She reveals it first by being like, the final girl's talking about like the body's over here, and she's like, yes, and the others are over there, and like kind of revealing what she knows, and that switch and that sort of moment of oh, it's her.
Yeah. You should have met my boy Jason. He was my son, and today is his birthday. You should have been watching him. And then it did get quite creepy where it cuts to a close-up of her, and she's like, she's basically mimicking Jason, talking to her. Kill her, mommy, kill her.
Yeah, which is very, very, very clearly Psycho-inspired, and I really like that.
Yeah.
It is a trope, and it's cliche to high heaven, but
back then it worked.
Yeah, and you understand her motives from this real simple little quirk of horror films. She has a son that was in a tragic drowning accident, and she suffered some kind of psychosis in the trauma from that, and now she has some kind of split personality problem.
But then there's clearly something supernatural involved because Jason comes back.
Yeah, this is why I'm confused. It's like it can't settle on what it wants to be. Is it a sort of psychological horror? Is it a sort of monster horrors? It can't settle it. But that's sort of by virtue of it wanting to have sequels.
Yeah.
If it settled, it'd be a one and done movie. It couldn't have sequels.
Yeah.
So it kind of keeps a foot in both camps. Both camps.
But go on.
Oh my God.
Camp Crystal Lake. I knew it. Brain dead. So what, overall, it's quite an enjoyable film.
I did enjoy it. I absolutely enjoyed it. You kind of have to take it at face value for what it is. It's a horror film that came out in the 80s, and it's a slasher film. And if that's what you're looking for, then you're going to love it.
It's the perfect type of horror film to watch with a group of friends, get a pizza, get some beers in.
That is the perfect way to describe it.
Yeah.
It's a watch with friends, have a laugh, have a joke kind of movie.
Because it's not... I mean, back then it might have been, but now it's really not the type of horror movie to be taken seriously.
No.
It's the kind of horror movie to laugh at.
Yeah.
And just have a joke.
Yeah. And I can't wait to see the sequel, The Return of Ned.
Yeah.
He will rise from the lake. Because he just likes thinking about kissing women.
Turns out it's not Jason, it's Ned.
Yeah, it sort of, in the same vein, ticked all the boxes for me, but then left a lot to be desired. But that's not necessarily the film's fault. It's sort of, again, I stress it's because it's something that's so talked about. It is such a well-known franchise that you think, well, there must be something real novel to it for it to be so well-regarded. And then you watch it, and it is just kind of a bog-standard slasher. But that's all it was ever intended to be. And the reason it's talked about so well is because it fits that mold perfectly.
Yeah.
Again, there is the element of supernatural, which does kind of muddy the water a little bit, but that's more teasing sequels and stuff. But if you take the film at face value, absolutely loved it. So good.
Yeah, and again, I enjoy it. I still think it's a lot of fun. It's the kind of movie that is so full of cliches, but the cliches are what make it enjoyable.
Yeah, if you're not a fan of those horror cliches, then you shouldn't be watching it in the first place. It's not really for you.
But then again, if you're someone who's trying to watch this and take it seriously,
like some serious kind of drama,
you're immediately doing it wrong. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing all the sequels with you.
Yeah, I do wonder where it's going to go from here. I think I've got a lot of surprises in store.
I think you have got a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, trepidatious. I assume Kevin Bacon doesn't come back in any of them either, does he, sadly?
No.
Oh, that's a shame.
I mean, he died in the first
that's true.
one.
But is anyone ever truly dead in a horror movie then?
That is true. That could be what the new one... If they ever make a new one and go Friday the 13th Part 11... The Rise of Ned.
You could bring back some of the original characters, some kind of undead spirit, not spiritual, but supernatural.
Hey, if Freddy can come to fight Jason, why can't some of his victims?
Kevin Bacon.
And he comes back as a slice of bacon. Guys, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel.
You can follow us on Instagram at Ben and Joel Reviews.
You can also follow us on Twitter, or X as it's now referred to, at B_J_reviews123. And we will see you next week.
Take care.
Take care, my loves.